March 17th, 1944. Hello, Mother, Dad, and gang. Here I am at last. I intended to write sooner, but you know me, always putting it off. Well, I had a pretty decent trip back, but didn't enjoy it as much as the trip east. We expect to leave sometime in May, so until then, don't do any worrying over me, and do very little after that. The weather is very pleasant here. The temperature's about 70, and it hasn't rained since I arrived. By the way, I arrived in plenty of time. Jeannie dropped me a couple letters so far, but I haven't heard from the kids. How's Fat Stuff doing? How did the pictures turn out? The ones that were taken in the cellar and outside the house? Also Thomas's. Well, tomorrow I'm a little older. Ye gods, I'm beginning to be an old man. I haven't worked very much since I came back. This has been just like a vacation. I'm saving my energy for the next cruise. Well, I guess I'll close now. So, till I hear from you, love, Herbie. I hardly ever slept in my bunk. It was not only too hot to sleep down there, I was afraid that if I was sleeping and the ship got torpedoed, I might not be able to get out in time. I always slept up on the deck underneath the 6-inch gun turrets. This way, if anything happened, I had a chance to get off that ship. John Bloomer, Motor Machinist Mate 3rd Class, USS Denver. At the start of our second cruise, the Navy approached me to see if I would transfer to another ship with a promotion. You see, trained men were in demand. I thought about it for a while, but I liked being on the Denver. We had a great crew. We had all been through so much together. I just liked being on that ship. It seems that decision may have saved my life, because the ship they wanted to transfer me to was the carrier USS Franklin. The Franklin was almost sunk by Japanese kamikazes, and she lost over 700 men. John Janito, radar mate, first class, USS Denver.
This is the launch of an SOC, which looks exactly like getting shot out of a 5-inch cannon. The guy in the back crossed his arms and put his head down as far as he could get it. The pilot had a headrest and put his head back against that. If either one of you squared up, well, you'd end up with your head outside the gosh darn airplane. In fact, E.V. Jones, one of the junior airmen, forgot to get the radio gear secured, and he came back home with a helmet full of blood and a big old hole in his head.
time when I was at my station in the CIC room, I had my head down looking at the various radar scopes. My job was to take that information, then plot it on these boards that were hanging up in the CIC room. So I had my head down, and some guy comes up behind me, puts both hands on my shoulders and says, "Hey, what's going on?" Without looking back, I said, "If you want to know what's going on, why don't you look at the goddamn boards?" The man removed his arms, said, "That's the best advice anybody ever gave me." He started walking out. As he did, I looked back. Here, it was the captain. John Janita, radar mate, first class, USS Denver.
Church in the hangar deck and Neptune's court across the equator. That sad-looking black guy in the second row on Neptune's court was my friend Willis. We were ashore one time. It's a long story, but I had a whole case of beer. And Willis came over and said, "Mr. Tucker, can I buy some beer?" Said, "We've run out of beer before we got to the steward's mates." And I said, "Hey man, what ship you off?" And he said, "You know what ship I'm off. I'm off the Denver." And I said, "I don't sell beer to my shipmates." And his face fell and he started to walk away. And I said, "I don't sell it. I'll give it to you. Take whatever you're supposed to." After that, Willis showed up almost every night with chow from the officers' quarters to my my duty station down the hangar deck.
Just like the beer that pickled dear old Dad. Once I was happy, but now I'm forlorn. My nerves are all shattered, my courage is gone. Left on a surface ship, tired and careworn, betrayed by a B-17. They float through the air with the greatest of ease, those daring young men in their B-17s. They scattered their bombs all over the seas. Oh, the seas are not safe anymore. Oh, the bombardier peered through the bomb sight. There was nothing but clouds down below. "We are over the target," he said. "Come right on the range, stand by, let 'em go." They float through the air with the greatest of ease, those daring young men in their B-17s. They scattered their bombs all over the seas. Oh, the seas are not safe anymore. Oh, the bombardier pushes the button. The bombs tumble out in a row. They all hit the targets for certain. Said he, "I'm sure that's Europe down below." They float through the air
30, September 1944. To P.K. Wells, Lieutenant Commander, United States Naval Reserve, Gunnery Officer, USS Denver. Dear Wells, in a recent operation in which the USS Denver participated, a lighthouse on the island was fired upon and knocked down. I am enclosing a picture of the lighthouse before being fired upon. This picture was given to me by Charlie, who took it from a dead Jap. Since you gave the lighthouse the coup de grace, I felt that this picture should ornament your office. Very truly yours, J.H. Carmichael, Lieutenant Commander, United States Navy, Gunnery Officer, USS Cleveland. You can't believe how it gets when the shooting starts. You have a bunch of 17, 18, 19-year-old kids manning guns, yelling directions. Friendly fire incidents do happen. One time, the Denver anti-aircraft crews were shooting at a Jap plane as they followed it all the way down until it crashed into the sea. The only problem with doing this is if the shells miss the plane, they keep right on going, and in this incident, they hit their sister ship, the USS Columbia. A 40mm anti-aircraft shell went through the stomach of one of the Columbia's crew, killing him instantly. John Janito, Radar Mate, First Class, USS Denver.
This is Lady Guff in the Philippines, where I killed my first Jap, or somebody, at least the first one I know about. It was a little guy pedaling down the road on a bicycle. Mr. Hartlov said, "Waste him," and I fired behind the sucker for a long time, hoping he'd hit the ditch. And finally Mr. Hartlov said, "God damn it, Tucker," I said, "waste him," so I did. Still don't know whether he's a Jap or a Filipino.
Japanese fleet attempted to pass through there, and we had the submarines up there. Darter and Dace, names of the submarines, were our advance guard, and we were well prepared, and there were a very large fleet waiting for them, and they never. We totally opened fire about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and totally annihilated almost every ship in the Japanese fleet, and that was the beginning of the end of the Japanese Navy. And that was the most important thing that we did. We fired every shell, every high-capacity armor-piercing shell that we had in this of our 6-inch and also our 5-inch. We had two types of guns on the main battery on the ship, and they were fired starting at about 30,000 yards and closing. And it was all radar controlled. We had very accurate radar even back in those days.
November 28, 1944. To the Chaplain of the Denver. Dear Sir, at this time I have a few lines I have written for the shipmates of my son, Olin Francis Beebe, Seaman First Class, who lost his life on the Denver last November. Thought perhaps you might be able to print them in the Denver Post or use them in one of your services. As at this time I would like to express my feelings this way at this Christmas season. My prayer. Dear Lord, tonight for the Denver we pray, as she sails anxiously on her way, from isle to isle in search of the foe. God keep her tonight from fear and from woe. Dear Lord, tonight for the Denver we pray, guide and protect her day by day. Give each shipmate courage to fight for the right. Dear Lord, stand with them on their watch tonight. Dear Lord, tonight for the Denver we pray, give her shelter tonight in some quiet bay. To each stalwart sailor, as he bends the knee, instill in him honor, courage, and great loyalty. Dear Lord, tonight for the Denver we pray, while she fervently seeks the enemy's lay. When she quivers and shakes from her guns' mount roar, and the salvos return from the enemy's shore. Dear Lord, tonight for the Denver we pray, may she return valiantly from the fray. Be it to each sailor a bright shining star, take heed for his safety in battle afar. Dear Lord, tonight for the Denver we pray, keep each mother's son till that wonderful day, when all shall return to our country's shore, and war shall be ended forevermore. Helen M. Beebe.
name is John Coons. I'm my brother's youngest brother. My brother Jake, he was on the Denver with your father. And anyway, we were practicing beachheads, and we were supposed to go to Borneo when we were practicing instead of going to Mindanao. And I found out there was a ship anchored out in the middle of the harbor there, so I asked one of the sailors on the ship, and he took me up to his poop deck, I guess, whatever the heck it was, I don't remember exactly. And he signaled over there, and it was the Denver. And I asked my captain if I could go over to see him, and he said no. So thank God the ship I was on, the LST, was the flagship of the fleet of LSTs, and that had the chaplain on board. So I went up and I seen him. He says, "Son, don't worry about it. You'll be there in an hour." And here comes this LCVP pulled up alongside the LST. I climbed down, got on that, and he took me over to the Denver. And I was going up the gangplank, and I had a Marine Guard there. And I didn't know that you had to salute the flag and all that when you got up. So he stopped me and said, "Hey, did you forget to do something?" I said, "No." He says, "Well, you better salute the flag before you go any further." So I saluted the flag, and then he called down somehow and got a hold of my brother. He came up and got me, and he took me down, but he was on duty at the time, working in the kitchen. So he says, "What do you want to eat?" When I got downstairs with him, or below decks. And he said, I said, "How about steak and eggs?" He says, "Okay." So that was my first meal on the ship, was steak and eggs. So then it was nighttime came, and I didn't expect to stay that long even. He said, "Hey, you can stay, we're going to be here for a couple days." So I said, "Okay." So he gave me his bunk, which was a hammock right near the shaft, one of the shafts on the ship. And this one happened to be bent a little bit before they got hit with a Kamikazi, And during the night, I hear this thing starting to turn. It made a heck of a racket. I said, "God damn, what's going on here?" And here we were moving. We were underway. I said, "Uh-oh, I'm going to get locked up for desertion." So eventually I found out that we were going for ammunition, because they were going to go somewhere for another beachhead somewhere. Little did I know that was for us, because they changed. The Australians took Borneo, and instead they sent us to Mindanao. And when we hit the beach here, they shelled the beach for us and all that stuff. And we didn't meet too much resistance on the initial day, but the second day we did meet a lot of resistance. And I stayed with him for 3 days. And when I left on the third day, I left with a bunch of goodies. I had 2 big boxes I had 6 quarts of Ortlieb's beer, and I had some orange juice and grapefruit juice, and I had several loaves of bread, a 5-pound block of cheese, and a 5-pound can of Spam. And a couple other things I don't remember exactly, but I had 2 full boxes. And when I got back to my ship, we had a very good time. We had a party, and my captain come up to me and he says, "How about a beer?" I said, "You ain't getting no beer from me, pal. You wouldn't let me go, so fool you and you." And I said for harsher words, but and that was it.
San Tomás University was a prison camp at this university in Manila, the capital of the Philippine Islands, on the main island of Luzon. And the Japs turned it into a prison camp, and they interred anybody that I interviewed a couple from England that had been interred. I think they were a member of the English embassy or something, but they didn't have enough to eat, and they didn't weigh 80 pounds maybe. You could see the outline of every bone in their body, their arms and their legs. It was a horrible experience. Unfortunately, I didn't have a piece of paper or pencil that I could write their names down, and so I can't remember what their names were, but we were very impressed. The Army was feeding them 24 hours a day. They had field soup kitchens set up, and it was a horrible experience. The entire city of Manila had been contested by the Japs, and it was a total wreck. Every building there was damaged and by gunfire. And in fact, while we were there was gunfire going on, and they were taking Japanese prisoners through the city. And most of them they had hung on poles with bound their hand and feet, and they were carrying them on long poles, the ones I saw. And the Japanese, our soldiers weren't too courteous to them. But it was quite an experience. Bay, Okinawa, and we did sail to a port on southern Honshu Island, main island of Japan, called Wakanura-1, where we sat through a 150 mile an hour typhoon, and picked up, we escorted 4 hospital ships which picked up prisoners of war. They had them working in coal mines and such as that on the main island of Japan. And then in November we started home. So we sailed to Pearl Harbor, then to California, and then down through the Panama Canal home to Norfolk, Virginia.
Just who were these brave men that were killed in action on the Denver? Olin Francis Beebe, seaman, first class. He enlisted August 27, 1942, and killed November 13, 1943, as a result of the torpedo attack. Prior to the war, he worked at the Colt Patent Firearms Manufacturing Company. Olin never went by the name of Olin. Instead, he preferred to be called Sonny or Francis. Olin's parents were first notified by telegram that their son was missing in action. Then months later, they were informed that he had died. Sonny had a brother John who served in the U.S. Army with the 295th Combat Engineers. After the war, the Denver was anchored at Boston Harbor, and Sonny's parents, brother John and sister Lucille, all visited the Denver and toured the entire ship. Jacob Martin Grace, seaman, second class. He was from the Springfield, Massachusetts area. Jacob joined the Navy September 7, 1942. He was killed in action November 13, 1943. Clyde Bradley Jackson, seaman, first class. Clyde joined the Navy December 16, 1941. He was killed in action November 13, 1943. Clyde was from the San Diego, California area. George Frank Casper, gunner's mate, third class. George joined the Navy September 8, 1942. Was killed in action November 13, 1943. George was from the New Haven, Connecticut area. Norbert Joseph Reeder, seaman, first class. Norbert joined the Navy July 16, 1942. He was killed in action November 13, 1943. He was survived by his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Cleveland Joseph Reeder. He was from the Chicago, Illinois area. Joseph Garland Vi, seaman, first class. Joseph joined the Navy August 18, 1942, and was killed in action November 13, 1943. Joe was from the Richmond, Virginia area. Charles F. Jorovich, electrician's mate, first class. Charles was born on August 29, 1921. He joined the Navy on March 27, 1940. He was killed in action on November 13, 1943, at the age of 22. He was from the Des Moines, Iowa area. Peter Charles Chido, machinist mate, second class. He was born March 30, 1922. He joined the Navy July 6, 1942. He was killed in action November 13, 1943, at the age of 21. Peter was from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. Louis Frederick Cataling. He was killed in action November 13, 1943, at the age of 28. Louis was from the New Haven, Connecticut area. Justice John Dreffs, machinist mate, first class. Justice was born September 27, 1909. Killed in action November 13, 1943, at the age of 34. Justice was from the Omaha, Nebraska area. Before the war, Justice was employed at the Baker Ice Manufacturing Company as a draftsman for 16 years. Then he joined the Navy 6 weeks after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Justice was survived by his wife Ruth, his parents, 2 brothers, and 1 sister. Buster Eli Fanning, seaman, second class. Buster was from the Los Angeles, California area. He was killed in action on November 13, 1943, from the torpedo attack. Joseph James Gerasi, seaman, second class. Joseph was born May 15, 1924. He was killed in action November 13, 1943. Joe was only 19 years old. He was from the Chicago, Illinois area. Joseph Peter Gulius, machinist mate, 2nd class. Joseph was born September 13th, 1919, killed in action November 13th, 1943, at the age of 24. Joe was from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. Claude Francis Tarkington, fireman, 1st class. Joined the Navy February 19th, 1942, killed in action November 13th, 1943. Claude was from the Norfolk, Virginia area. Charles Edwin White, water tender, 2nd class. Charles was born February 2nd, 1920. He was killed in action November 13th, 1943, at the age of 23. He was from Eddy County, New Mexico. Thames F. Norris, fireman, 1st class. Thames was born in 1924. He was killed in action November 13th, 1943, at the age of 19. Thames was from the Indianapolis, Indiana area. Rivette John Digre, fireman, 2nd class. Rivette joined the Navy on December 11, 1941, just 4 days after Pearl Harbor. He was killed in action November 13, 1943. Rivette was from the New Orleans, Louisiana area. Harold Earl Fielding joined the Navy September 8, 1942. He was killed in action November 13, 1943. Harold was from the Providence, Rhode Island area. William Horak, machinist mate, 1st class. He joined the Navy May 8, 1939. He was killed in action November 13, 1943. He was survived by his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Henry Horak of Prince George County, Virginia. Alvin Perry Hyatt. He was born on December 14, 1914, in western Kentucky. He joined the Navy in 1936 and was originally stationed on cruiser USS San Francisco. He was killed in action November 13, 1943, at the age of 28. He had one brother, Vernon, a sister named Lee, and several step-siblings. Alvin preferred to go by the name of Perry. Perry would send 5 hours at a time home to help out his family. He was at Pearl Harbor during the attack on December 7th. The following voice is a recorded letter home made by Perry to his family while he was stationed at the Philadelphia Navy Yard. The quality of the recording is not good as the original disc had been damaged by water.
Greetings, Mrs. Fields. You know, service is a watchword today, and the Gloucester City Rotary Club is exemplifying that spirit by bringing you a message from your son. This is Ellis Rotarian presenting Perry, whose voice you will now hear, and may his message bring you real happiness and plenty of good cheer. Okay, Perry, your mother.
Hello, Mother. How you getting along? This leaves me fine. I just got back from Detroit. Vernon, Lee, and May and Hazel were all well. Lee May wrote to you when I first got there. Anyway, we all had a good time. We went night clubbing, and I seen Faith's sister in Helen. Evan and Bill come down and stayed 2 days. Helen took us to the park. Friday afternoon, we all had a big time. I wanted to come down home, but couldn't make the 2 trips at once and get back to Philadelphia. May and Hazel have small jobs. Vernon is working steady. Well, thanks, hi, I'm sorry I couldn't see him. Hello, Pauline, how are you? Be a good girl and go to school. Take good care of yourself. Hello, Gus. Are you about ready to start school? May was telling me about you getting your bicycle. Hope you enjoy riding it. I wish I could have stayed longer with all of you while I was there, but my time was short now. We only had to take time to get back to Philadelphia. Hello, Bobby and Betty. How you kids getting along? You feel like me to kiss you again? Anyhow, Mother, tell Mr. and Miss Workman, Miss Williams, tell them all hello. I'd like to see them again. Sorry I couldn't stay longer with them. Tell Aunt Kenny that I was glad Phil was all there that night. And now my time was short, but we made the most of it. 25th, 1942. I wish you'd go down and finish the band over camp, but when you pass to see him turn that start, I can get down to see him. Because he may not be here much longer. And I hope he gets better. He's been sick. when you ride in Kitty, well, you can tell her about that bottle up there at her house. Tell her she can drink it all if she wishes. She just had a letter from Aunt Nettie. She's talking about, she wrote me, but she didn't know I was there, so I'm going to answer it and tell her that I was down in Kentucky. And sorry I couldn't get to see him. Had another letter from Mrs. Allred, Detroit. They're all well. I wrote you a letter the other day, and I also received 21 letters the other day. I guess my trip turned around and they just caught up to me. Anyhow, I'll probably be at this place for a month or two, and so you can use this address, and you won't have to be changing so much.
Where are you from there?
Kentucky.
Kentucky. Oh, down there. You ever
Good
get,
guy, Susan.
you ever get roaming through the hills in old Kentucky?
Yeah.
Go run across anything out there, Tony? Look at it.
Moonshine liquor.
How is it?
Oh, it's pretty good.
Pretty good. They drink that hot, is that right? That's what they told me, huh?
Yeah, it's a red whiskey, and they have a white mule called.
White mule. Did you bring any, ever bring any up with you when you were down in Kentucky?
Yeah, I used to drink a little of it. I went home one time on leave, and I took some to my cousin. He wouldn't drink about him down whiskey. He wanted the old red golden pond.
And, well, when do you expect to get back? Is that where the girlfriend is down in Kentucky?
Yeah.
She's a grand old ship, she is really a pip, and her crew is as true as can be. They've learned to fight with all their might, and protect and preserve liberty. And the captain grand, when he gives a command, knows it's carried out to a T. For he trained us all, and we're always on the ball, we're all proud of the mighty D. She's a grand old ship, she is really a pip, and her crew is as true as can be. They've learned to fight with all their might, and protect and preserve liberty. And the captain grand, when he gives a command, knows it's carried out to a T. For he trained us all, and we're always on the ball, we're all proud of the mighty D. Just like the beer that pickled dear old Dad. It was the beer Daddy ever had. That good old-fashioned beer with lots of foam. Took 10 men to carry Daddy home. I want a beer just like the beer that pickled dear old Dad. I want a beer just like the beer that pickled dear old Dad. It was a beer, the only beer that Daddy ever had, that good old-fashioned beer with lots of foam. Took 10 men to carry Daddy home. I want a beer just like the beer that pickled dear old Dad. Once I was happy, but now I'm forlorn. My nerves are all shattered, my courage is gone. Left on a surface ship, tired and careworn, betrayed by a B-17. They float through the air with the greatest of ease, those daring young men in their B-17s. They scattered their bombs all over the seas, oh, the seas are not safe anymore. Oh, the bombardier peered through the bomb sight. There was nothing but clouds down below. We are over the target, he said. Come right on the range, stand by, let him go. They float through the air with the greatest of ease. Those daring young men in their B-17s. They scattered their bombs all over the seas. Oh, the seas are not safe anymore. Oh, the bombardier pushes the button. The bombs tumble out in a row. They all hit the targets for certain. Said he, I'm sure that's Europe down below. They float through the air with the greatest of ease. Those daring young men in their B-17s. They scattered their bombs all over the seas. For the seas are not safe anymore.
Actually, I'd love it if James would just stand up and we could acknowledge him and his research and his work. There he is right there. One thing that I forgot to mention is that recording, after I listened to it, we may have to do it again, but will now be underlaid on a YouTube clip that James has put together, a montage of pictures of people who served on the ship and the ship itself. So what an exciting project, and thank you for reaching out to us and letting us in.